that is a byproduct of the fact that she knows she is a TV personality, that's someone that I want to follow and listen to what she does in terms of her knowledge of games. Now, I haven't watched X play in a year, right? I have no interest in watching X play, like I have no interest in seeing anything that's on G4. The point is, though, that if you stop watching those things because you're somehow, wow, iJustine is just leveraging her sexuality to get guys to start drooling over her and watch her video game videos. Okay, well, if people don't watch her video game videos, she doesn't make any more video game videos. If you guys stop commenting and you go away and stop watching my videos, then I don't make any more videos. It's just that simple, right? Anyway, all right, so I think I beat that dead horse enough now, right, guys? If you stop watching, it will go away. So if you have problems with those particular constructions, just get rid of them and they're gone. It's that simple. But the fact is, people still watch them. That's just the reality. Sad or otherwise, that's the reality. And in that marketplace of ideas, I gotta say, I have to agree with Maze. It's not something I would want to watch, but if those girls want to leverage their sexuality, go ahead, go for it. It's just not something I'm interested in. I like to think I have a little bit more refinement than that. And I think you guys would agree. Here's a really, really good point. Have a corn dog. This is a fantastic idea. And this is more or less a kind of quote, right? Video game aptitude has nothing to do with sex. Think about that for a minute, right? In other words, it's not just the content. It's not just the construction. It's not just the social communities or the cultural communities. It's not just that. But that video game aptitude, as in your ability to connect and play games that you love and know and connect to, has more to do with or has nothing to do with your sex and more to do with the way that you connect to those games. The ways that you like to go and enact your spare time, your fantasy life, whether you watch movies, whether you watch TV shows, whether you hang out with friends, whether you read books, whether you play video games. It has nothing to do with your gender constructions. It has nothing to do with your sex biologically. It has to do with how much you like and have fun with a particular concept and a particular mechanic. Now, people like me, and people like Maze, and people like all of you out there want to ask questions about what that really means. Well, what does it mean that, there are games that more men want to play than women? Well, there's something there. That means something, right? But at the end of the day, I think what all of you have said repeatedly, have a corn dog, one of them, games should be fun. If they're fun, then we'll continue to play them, regardless of what kind of gender constructions our society creates and regardless of what our sex might happen to be. But I think also that goes to show you that just as women can be just as good at video games as men can be. There's no reason why it should be any different. It's not like professional football, right? You're going to be hard-pressed to find a woman that can play professional football, right, in America with these 300-pound people, and God bless them. I wouldn't want to do that, let alone them do that. I wouldn't want to be out there with those guys. They're animals, right? But video gaming is not that way. Aptitude in that arena is not dictated by sex. That's a cool thought. That's something I really like the idea of perpetuating. Why is it that we can't see that girls that play video games, that's cool. A lot of you said it. It's really cool that there are women out there that play video games. I happen to love women that play video games for the most part, right? Just as I love men that play video games for the most part because they like the same stuff I like generally. The point is, guys, I think, as we can see, and there's so many other thoughts to have here, you guys see how this could just blow up and go so much further, that the idea that video game aptitude has nothing to do with sex is such a great idea just because we don't have to limit the ways in which we connect to the medium of video games in general by virtue of our sex. I think that's the bottom line, and I think that really gets to the heart of what I want to talk about. But there's more to talk about from you guys too. Prangerade spoke about the idea of finding something with his wife, with your significant other, that you can relate to through video games. And I thought that was awesome. I thought that was fantastic. One of the reasons that we like, the things that we like in our life, I find we like to be able to share, right? Especially if we're going to be in a relationship with someone, whether that relationship happens to be friendly, work, casual acquaintance, or even, a romantic relationship or familial relationship. We share part of our lives, with those people. What that means is, I think, in general, we like to share those things that we enjoy and find fun and so on and so forth with those people. All right, well, that was embarrassing. So I actually talked so much that I ran out of space on the Clan of the Grey Wolf flip video camera. Anyway, going to keep going and going to try to go a little faster because this has been going on longer than any weekly Ringer in history, but that is okay because we had a great topic. Anyway, I was talking about relating to someone and really finding that kind of common ground. I find in relationships I connect better with people that like the things that I like, to a certain degree, and there are plenty of things that maybe they don't like that I do. You're not looking for sameness in people, you're just looking for kind of common ground. Video gaming is no different. That's why I like the idea of what Wringer said, that we find things that we can both relate to inside video games, and that becomes something that really amplifies and intensifies our relationship and gives us a common ground to really find. Mr. K pointed out a statistic that I thought was interesting, that there were more females buying video game consoles this holiday season than men. Interesting thought. I'm not sure what kind of a trend that really indicates. We could talk about this a lot. Right? And interesting too that gets reported on nightly news, basically a day or two after I posted the weekly Ringer with this question. In any case, I don't know what that really indicates in terms of a trend, but I think it does highlight the fact that women are much more a part of the video game zeitgeist than they've ever been at any point in history. That's really cool. That means I think we've made some good progress in terms of video games being a medium that is universally appreciable, but regardless of what sex or gender you happen to subscribe to or be a part of, right? That is good news. I love that idea. And I think that as long as video gaming is going to be considered an art form, something that we should celebrate, something that is akin to film or television or so on and so forth, as long as it is that, and it's going to be that, it's going to have to be appreciated by people universally without the kind of bias and, I guess, the creation of gender-specific audiences for that particular media in general. There might be movies that are made for men or with men in mind, just like there are movies with women made with women in mind. Video games will be the same way. But until the medium really embraces all those communities, kind of at least semi-equally, I think we're probably in a troubling era for video games. Now, at this point, at the Weekly Ringer, this is normally when I dive into my own opinion on this. However, I think I've done enough to talk about this, right? My thoughts, just to give you a couple sentences. It's very problematic the way that female characters are shown in video games. Number one, we've got to change that in my mind. Number two, I really can't stand the way that gaming communities treat women and the way that there is a kind of lack of humanity and lack of civility in video gaming communities in general on the internet. I find that to be repulsive in general. Thirdly, I think it's terrible how the industry as a whole kind of perpetuates this hypersexualized or hypersexualization of women, and I think it's time to really think about how we can change those things moving forward. And I challenged when I was teaching game simulation and game design, one of the things I really pushed my students to think about was how we could try to eliminate some of those barriers, and I think it's very important to do so. And lastly, and this just makes sense, I think we need to celebrate and really as gamers find and hover around those things that do a great job, that do the best at what they do. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy Call of Duty if you don't love Call of Duty, buy it. But if you really love Minecraft, if you really love Braid, if you really love all these games that I think really do a great job, Beyond Good and Evil's got a sequel coming out. If you see a game that does well, put your money down and buy it, because that is how we create an audience that is universally accepting, that really gets toward, I think, the more equal issues in terms of how we treat gender and sex constructions in games, if that makes any sense. I might be rambling at this point, but that really is how I feel. I think, again, if there's no audience for something, it goes away, and if we take away the audience for all the garbage out there, then people won't make those games anymore, and people will make games that are definitely better, quote unquote. All right, so rather than go on about that any further, I want to get to the question for next week, now that I know that this video is probably going to be damn close, if not over, an hour long, which will probably be a new record for the Weekly Ringer. And by the way, as a side note, I'm actually thinking it's miraculous my voice has made it this long. Anyway, so some of you, or probably all of you that watch this video series, are going to know that, and you saw, if you watched the Super Bowl, you saw an ad for this, that the Star Wars prequel, so that is 1, 2, 3, I'm sure eventually 4, 5, 6, ad nauseum, are going to be re-released in the theaters, this time in 3D. What I want to ask you guys a question for next week, and I want you to not just answer the question, but as always, give me a nice why. The question for next week is, are you going to see the Phantom Menace, or any of the Star Wars movies, re-released in the theater in 3D? You going to hawk up the cash and go see those movies in 3D? Now, before, the prequel has obviously been the fodder for much of our observation here at Clan of the Grey Wolf and by many other people. I want to talk about that. I never hesitate to talk about that. But I want to know, guys, someone's going to spend their money on that. Is it going to be you? And tell me why, or tell me why not. That's the question for next week's Weekly Ringer. Guys, thanks for bearing with me during this very long topic. I want to ask questions like this every once in a while that are very, very big and we can spend a lot of time talking about. I hope you don't mind that the video went this long. I will try to keep next week a lot shorter to compensate. In any case, thank you for watching the Weekly Ringer as always. Thank you for commenting on the Weekly Ringer and keeping the show going. And keep those comments rolling for next week's question, which I hope will just be delightful. Anyway, that is the Weekly Ringer for this week. I am the Commodore from the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and there is no reset button.